we went into this process 5 years ago wondering if the same fandom that we have for the Grateful Dead and Harry Potter could be applied to any business. And the answer is absolutely, positively yes.
Welcome to the Modern Marketing Engine podcast, hosted by Bernie Borges. This is the podcast for the modern marketer who wants to hear from their peers in the trenches and the occasional analyst or rockstar influencer sharing strategies and tactics about what's working in modern marketing. Be sure to listen to the end of each episode for Bernie's summary and takeaways so you can plan your next move in your own modern marketing journey.
Hey there, welcome to episode 268 of the Modern Marketing Engine podcast. I'm Bernie Borges, CMO of Vengreso, and your host. Hey, thanks for listening. Hey, my guest on this episode is David Meerman Scott. Now, David is a popular marketing strategist. He's an entrepreneur. He's an advisor. In fact, he's an advisor to my company, Vengreso. He's also a global speaker, and he's a best-selling author of 11 marketing books. In fact, he's best known as the author of The New Rules of Marketing and PR. Maybe you've read it. Now, in this episode, we are going to dive into his new book, his 11th book, called Fanocracy. So, let's get to my conversation with David Meerman Scott. David, welcome to the Modern Marketing Engine podcast.
Bernie, my friend, always glad to speak with you. Thanks so much for having me on.
Well, I'm excited to talk with you about your new book, your 11th book, quite an achievement. You've been on the speaking circuit and you've been authoring now for quite a while. I remember following you back in your early days.
Yeah.
And here you are publishing your 11th book. And let's get into it. Fanocracy. What a great name. Turning fans into customers and customers into fans. I think where I'd like to start with you, David, is what influenced you, what inspired you to write this book?
Thanks, Bernie. It's always really great to chat with you. So, as you know, I wrote The New Rules of Marketing and PR that originally came out in 2007. That's the book I'm best known for. It did really well. It's still doing well. It's sold 400,000 copies in English. It's in 29 languages. And it's really the first book that identified the whole idea of content marketing or inbound marketing, or I call it the new rules of marketing, social media marketing, whatever sort of term you want to use, is the first book that really
maybe modern marketing. How about that?
Modern market. Okay, modern marketing engine. That's a good idea. Modern marketing. I agree with that. Modern marketing. So I was thinking about 5 years ago, so many people have been abusing that channel. And you and I see this all the time in our work with Vengreso. You know, people abusing the channel by, if you buy something from them, all of a sudden they're sending you 3 or 5 emails a day, or somebody connects with you on LinkedIn, they're immediately trying to sell you something. We see that all the time. Or they're doubling down on social media posts that are just trying to sell stuff. The social media companies themselves are part of the problem, because initially it was all about allowing you to reach your audience. But now it seems like if you don't pay, you don't get noticed. So I was thinking to myself, wow, there's a whole lot of digital chaos out there. I wonder what's next. And I said to myself, wow, I'm a massive fan of the Grateful Dead. I love the Grateful Dead. I've been to 75 Grateful Dead concerts. I've been to 780 live music shows in my life of all different bands. And I was talking to my daughter, Reiko, who's 26 years old. And I said, you know, Reiko, I'm just this massive music geek. And she goes, I know, Daddy, I'm a massive Harry Potter geek. She's read every book multiple times, seen every movie multiple times, gone to the Wizarding World of Harry Potter several times, went to the UK to go on the studio tour where they filmed the movies. But she also wrote a 90,000 word alternative ending to the Harry Potter series where Draco Malfoy is a spy for the Order of the Phoenix.
This little 90,000 word alternative ending.
Yeah. Posted it on a Fanfiction site. And it's been downloaded thousands of times and commented on hundreds of times. So we both have dug into the things we're fans of. And I said to her, you know, we should write a book because we're both massive fans of the things we love. And at the same time, the whole social channel is becoming digital chaos. And our original thesis is that we love this idea of the things that we're fans of. Can businesses tap that same kind of fandom? So 5 years of research, hundreds of people we interviewed, The answer is absolutely yes. Any organization, anyone listening into this right now, can develop fans in the same way that Harry Potter has fans, in the same way that the Grateful Dead has fans.
Okay, now I want to elaborate on the fact that you wrote this book with your daughter, Reiko, and on your website, fanocracy.com, we'll link that up in the show notes. You've got a beautiful picture of the two of you, and she's a millennial. She's also a med student, right?
Yeah, she's a mixed race millennial woman med student. And she did her undergraduate degree at Columbia in neuroscience. So she's got a neuroscience degree. And that was something we dug into, this idea of the neuroscience.
So I want to take a minute, though. What was it like to write a book with your daughter?
Oh, man, Bernie. It was fabulous for the book, first of all, because I'm a middle-aged white guy, and Reiko is a mixed-race millennial woman, and it's a really big difference in outlook. However, we have the exact same ideas around fandom, so she's a perfect writing partner. And it's also as fabulous for our personal relationship because it brought us closer together. And the reason I think it brought us so close together is that going into this, she was 21 years old, and it was, I'm the dad, you're the daughter kind of relationship. We had a great relationship even then, but over the last 5 years, she's now 26, the last 5 years, it's been a partnership of equals because I had to make sure that she was equal to me as she was writing and researching the book. And that she needed to feel totally comfortable if she was reading something that I wrote and she didn't like it. I gave her permission to say, "Daddy, this sucks," which she did, right? She was happy to say that. And she's actually a way better writer than me. So having her edit my work was amazing. And so I think it brought us much closer together in an equal way that I think I'm glad we were able to achieve as she's sort of a young adult now.
That's awesome. That's awesome. On a personal note, I can relate to some extent. I have a 29-year-old daughter. Her name is Amanda. She's a sports journalist with Yahoo Sports. She's an on-camera talent, and she frequently says, "Hey, my dad was verified on Twitter before I was."
Nice. So, right. So if Amanda's 29, you get it. You understand this idea. Also, the amazing nature of the millennial generation. I mean, the idea is that they have different ways of thinking in some cases, and being able to bring that voice into my work, and I'm sure in your case around the dinner table or whatever, hearing that voice is really powerful stuff.
Absolutely. Let's talk about the neuroscience aspect of it, because it's a part of your book. You say you've actually got neuroscience built into your fandom thesis, right? And how it actually has an influence on how companies can build fans. You want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, of course. So we were fascinated with the idea of what's going on in our brains when we become fans of something. I mean, we just really wanted to know the answer to this question. And Reiko, especially having a neuroscience background, and we spoke with a bunch of neuroscientists that did some research. And it turns out that when we become fans of something, so I become a fan of the Grateful Dead, she becomes a fan of Harry Potter, whatever anyone listening in is a fan of, what we're really doing is becoming part of a tribe. We're becoming a part of a group of like-minded people who feel comfortable in each other's company. So I can go to a Grateful Dead concert, and even though I don't know the person next to me, waiting in line to get in the venue or waiting in line for a beer or in between the songs, I can strike up a conversation with them, and we can be chatting like we're old friends because we're part of the same tribe. That's one of the natures of fandom that we found really interesting. And it really is rooted in neuroscience because our ancient brains are hardwired. It's a survival technique. We're hardwired to have close emotional connections to people who are part of our tribe. And we're also hardwired to be cautious of a potential enemy who's not part of our tribe. So this is, again, it's hardwired. It's something that we can't help. It's part of our ancient survival technique. So there's one neuroscientist named Edward T. Hall who identified different levels of proximity. Further than about 20 feet away is called public space. And our brains know that there's humans in our public space further than 20 feet away, but we don't really track them yet. Inside of about 20 feet, between about 4 feet and about 20 feet, becomes social space. Our brains begin to track people who are in our social space. And then closer in yet is personal space inside of 4 feet. So when you walk into a room and there's people within about 20 feet of you, roughly, you can't help the fact that you track those people because your brain wants to know, are these people part of my tribe? Are they friends? Or are they a potential enemy? That's why when you walk into, say, let me just give an example. You walk into an event, a conference. You and I were at HubSpot Inbound recently, and you can walk into a room, a cocktail party at HubSpot Inbound, for example, and feel really good, strong, positive vibes because you're part of that same tribe. But you can get into an elevator and you don't know those people and you feel a negative vibe because your fight or flight instinct is kicking in. So here's what this means for all of us who are marketers, entrepreneurs, business owners, who are trying to develop fans. The more you can bring people in close physical proximity, the more you can grow fans because you're bringing people together in close proximity to you or close proximity to other people, forming this tribe, forming this group of like-minded people. But there's another aspect of neuroscience that's really interesting as well. It's the concept of mirror neurons. Mirror neurons are the part of our brain that fire when we see or even hear someone doing something as if we're doing it ourselves. So, for example, Bernie, I have a lemon in my hand, and I really do.
I believe you.
And I mean, it's a podcast. You can't see the lemon, but I'm going to take a bite of this lemon. And as I take a bite of the lemon, my eyes scrunch up, my mouth puckers up. I can feel it instantly on my tongue. It's a really powerful sensation. My saliva is doing its thing. I mean, biting into a lemon is a powerful thing. And if you had seen me bite into that lemon, your mirror neurons are firing. It's the part of your brain that fires when you see someone do something as if you do it yourself. And sometimes our brain can even fire if you simply hear someone talk about something. So perhaps, Bernie, your brain might have fired just a little bit and you might have tasted just a little bit of lemon on the end of your tongue. Yeah, interesting, right? So here's what this means for developing fans for all of us. What it means is, can you bring yourself into virtual proximity using the concept of mirror neurons with your existing and potential customers in order to get them to become your fans, part of your tribe? And here's how you do that. Use photographs and use video as much as you can, cropped as if it's within personal space, so about 4 feet away, where you or your customers or your partners are looking directly at the camera. And so using video, using photographs on your website, in your marketing, in your social media, very, very, very powerful clues in our brain that these people that we're seeing, even though it's virtual, are people who are part of our tribe. This is exactly why we feel we know movie stars. You've never met that movie star. Right. You only see them on a screen, but you feel you know them.
What about for the brand who's been in business for, say, more than 10 years, and they've been doing modern marketing modestly well, but they really haven't built that fandom that you're describing in your book, Fanocracy? What's the next step for them? What paradigm shift do they need to experience as a result of the research that you and Reiko have done in your book, Fanocracy?
So there's a few things that come to mind immediately that can be done fairly quickly. And then there's some other things that can be considered sort of for longer term. So immediately, one of the things that all companies should be thinking about, this is especially true of B2B, but it's true of all companies, is take a look on your website. And keeping in mind what we just spoke about, the power of a virtual human connection unit using mirror neurons when you see photographs or video of people. But do an audit of your website, do an audit of your social media, do an audit of your marketing materials, and look for any uses of stock photos of people and eliminate them. Try to swap those stock photos for photographs of real people. Photographs of real people where possible cropped as if you're in the social space, or better yet, the personal space of those people. And that's something all of us can do. All of us can even make those swaps, in the next couple of weeks. The second thing I would suggest we can do right now is look for the language, the actual words and phrases that you're using in your marketing materials and your website and so on. And look for those buzzword bingo sort of words, the flexible, scalable solution for improving business process using cutting edge technology and mission critical applications.
You've been talking about that a long time, Dave.
Yeah, I have been. That kind of language. That's not how people talk. And eliminating that language and using the kinds of words and phrases that real people use, that can be really a positive way to help to grow fans. So those are some real near-term ideas, but I'll give you another longer-term idea. The concept is that once you put your product or service out into the marketplace, it's no longer yours. It now belongs to your fans. So what I mean by that is you need to lose control of your wonderful products and services and let the fans take over and use your products and services in the way that they want to. And I'd like to illustrate that with two examples, actually maybe even three examples. So the first example is the way not to do it. My daughter is a massive fan of Adobe Photoshop. And she creates art using Photoshop. And she's got a bunch of her friends who also create art using Photoshop. And many of them participate in virtual communities online of people who love to do this. And they all say that Adobe themselves, the company, is not approaching them as fans in the way that they'd like. Because the first thing is Adobe seems to focus only on their B2B customers and not their consumer customers who love to create art using Photoshop. The second thing is they try to control the way that those fans talk about Photoshop. They actually say you cannot say that you Photoshopped something. Adobe says you must say that you manipulated something using Adobe trademark Circle R, Photoshop trademark Circle R software. And my daughter Reiko says, Daddy, everything that my friends and I are saying sounds like a fan. Everything that Adobe tells us the way we should say sounds like a robot. So the idea here is that once you put your product or service out into the market, you need to let the fans take over and talk about it in any way they want. And I'll contrast that with two companies, one B2C and one B2B, who are actually doing this and letting their fans take over. The first one is iRobot. They make the Roomba vacuum cleaner, robotic vacuum cleaner. Yep. What's cool about that, there's a whole subculture of fans who love to take videos of their pets riding on their Roomba. And maybe you've seen some of these on YouTube, but they're hysterical. They've got tens of millions of views. Dogs and cats and other animals riding on the Roomba around the house. It's hysterical, right? It's like an Uber for kitties. and what I love about that is that those fans of Roomba are not using the product in the way it's intended. They're letting their animals ride on it. But iRobot, the company behind Roomba, is not trying to tell people, oh, that's not an approved use, you have to take down the videos. Rather, they're celebrating the fact that their fans love to do this. The second B2B example comes from Microsoft. Microsoft has a worldwide partner community that's huge. 300,000 partner members. It actually represents the largest revenue source of Microsoft in their company, $95 billion in revenue. But what I find remarkable is that Microsoft allows the partner channel to control the way that they interact with one another in the online communities And Microsoft does not have a heavy hand in the way that they run those communities. So a partner can ask a question of another partner. A partner can start a thread in this online community and the other partners will answer. And Microsoft doesn't say, oh, we're the boss, we're going to tell you the answer. The partners answer the questions of the other partners. Mm-hmm. And so what's interesting about that is Microsoft has let go. They've let go and let the partners take over that channel. And Katie Quigley, who's the vice president of marketing at Microsoft, who we interviewed, said, our partners don't want to hear from us. They want to hear from their peers. And so I think these are sort of two examples of things that marketers can do right away. One of them is short-term, the photos and the words you use. The second is a bit more long-term, but the idea of making sure that your customers control the narrative once you put it out.
If we look at it at a really simplified level, what they have in common, the common thread, it's really simple. It's the human connection.
Yes.
And what Adobe is doing is stifling that, and I'm sure lawyers are the ones that are doing that.
Yeah, I think you're probably right, Bernie. I haven't gotten confirmation of that, but it seems like Adobe is letting their lawyers say the way they communicate. Interestingly, iRobot didn't, because you can imagine their lawyer saying, oh my God, don't let the dogs and cats ride the Roomba. What if we get sued? But as far as I know, they're not doing that. So I think you're probably right.
So, and the Microsoft example is a really good one because, quite frankly, it pleasantly surprises me because they also are a big company with lots and lots of lawyers. And somebody there at the executive level really gets it and is allowing the partners to really commune with each other and really enjoy it and produce really good results from it.
Yeah, and there's another aspect of the partner community, which I find also fascinating, is I've spoken 5 or 6 times at the Microsoft Worldwide Partner Conference. Tens of thousands of people get together, a massive conference. The partners themselves have a hand in curating who the speakers are going to be and what the content tracks are going to be and what the different sessions are going to be, which I find fascinating. It's not Microsoft saying, oh, yep, we're going to put this together. It's the partners helping to curate that. And the results are staggering. Microsoft recently became the most valuable company on the planet. And $95 billion of that revenue on an annual basis comes from this partner channel.
That's amazing. So I want to ask one final question before I transition over to my summary section. And that is sort of the question that perhaps if I'm reading the mind of at least one listener, that is, how does fandom translate to revenue, David?
Fandom translates to revenue because when you have a passionate fan base, when you have a group of people who love you and support you, those are the people who are going to, number one, continue to support you. They're going to re-up if you're a subscription basis every year. They're going to buy more products. They're going to talk about you word of mouth and through social media. And it's just like the way that Harry Potter grew, or just like the way that the Grateful Dead has grown. You can grow through a massive fan base. What comes to mind immediately when you ask that question is that I've been on the HubSpot board of advisors since 2007. A B2B marketing, sales, and customer service growth platform. It's a software. And HubSpot has done a remarkable job at building fans. They have 25,000 people attend their annual conference. They have millions of people who subscribe to their social feeds. They have millions of people who go to view their blogs. They have tens of thousands of people who take their courses on HubSpot Academy. Just a really great job at building fans. And they've grown really quickly as a result of this. And last time I checked, I think it was roughly a $6 billion market cap. And they were only founded in 2006. They've only been around for a short period of time, but they've grown like crazy. And much of the way they've grown is through fans. And I know that to be true because of the fact that I've been on their advisory board since the beginning.
Weren't they just recently named the best place to work in all of the USA?
They were named the number one place to work by Glassdoor based on employee ratings in the entire country, which is remarkable. Now, we could actually go down that rat hole for just a moment, but one of the other things we identified in Fanocracy through all the research we did is this: passion is infectious. Passion is infectious. So the HubSpot employees love working at HubSpot. They're fans of the place they work. And that passion is infectious. The passion they have for HubSpot then translates to customers loving HubSpot. Because when you encounter someone who works there, maybe at their conference or on the phone or through an email or something, you can just feel the passion that those employees have for working there. Number one rated company in the country.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of a place to work. And then that also helps to drive fans. And in fact, that was one of the final chapters of the book, the idea that how important it is for employees of a company to help grow fans through this idea of passion.
Yeah, very impressive story for sure. All right, David, I want to get to the part of the podcast where I do kind of a recap of what we discussed. And after I walk through it, I'm going to ask you to add any final commentary, and then we'll ask you for some digital contact information, and we'll bring the episode to a wrap. So we began a little bit of a background on your history as a speaker and author, and you originally wrote The New Rules of Marketing and PR. Several years ago, it's sold over 400,000 copies in English, and it's published in 29 languages, and really kind of the first book in modern marketing. I remember reading it many years ago. And you've been thinking recently about how many people have been sort of abusing these new modern channels. And you used the word that we're kind of in digital chaos. I like that. I don't think I've heard that before. And you reflected on the fact that you're a huge fan of the Grateful Dead. You've been to 75 Grateful Dead concerts. That is mind-blowing. And your millennial daughter is a huge fan of Harry Potter to the tune of writing a 90,000 word alternative ending. Is that right? Alternative ending?
Yeah, a 90,000 word alternative ending in the form of a novel, which she posted on a Fanfiction site.
Impressive. So you kind of came together and you said, you're both fans, great fans of things, and you decided to do some research, and the two of you have done research for 5 years to really come up with a book that says, hey, this fan thing, Fanocracy, any business can develop Fanocracy. So you and Reiko wrote the book, just published early in the new year. And I asked you, what was it like to write it with Reiko? And you said, it's interesting. She's a millennial, kind of a different outlook on life, but you're really a partnership of equals in the research and the writing process. That's really, really cool. We talked about her background. Her undergraduate degree is in neuroscience, and how neuroscience actually plays a significant role in fandom and kind of the whole impact on the brain and how the brain reacts, and how when we're together with like-minded people, and depending on the physical proximity of space that we're in and the impact that has on how we engage with people. And then you said, you can do that digitally by using video and photos. And I asked you, well, so how do you make the shift? How does a business make that shift to really think about becoming a company that's a practitioner of Fanocracy? And you said, well, first start looking at your website, your marketing material, do an audit of all your material, discard all of those stock photography, which we're guilty of using at Vengreso. Thank you for calling us out on that. And you've been faithful to that for quite a while, and replace it with real people. And crop it in personal space, because the neuroscience behind being in personal space really has an impact on the whole fandom thing. And you also said audit your content for words that have a lot of lingo in them and replace them with simpler, more human words that people actually understand and can really believe. And then you talked about how once a brand goes to market with their product, their offering, it doesn't really belong to the brand anymore. It belongs to the fans. And you gave several examples. One, not a really good one, how Adobe doesn't really treat their fans all that well, kind of tries to control them. And you gave two really good examples of brands, one B2C and one B2B, that are doing a terrific job. iRobot with the Roomba vacuum and how they allow dogs and cats to ride them and just let people have fun with that. And then Microsoft, of all large B2B companies, quite frankly, really surprised me again pleasantly. 300,000 partners influencing $95 billion, and how Microsoft just lets them commune with each other, talk to each other, and Microsoft stays out of the way. That's fantastic. And then we kind of wrapped the conversation around how does fandom translate to revenue? I love what you said, David. A passionate fan base that loves you and supports you. They're going to renew. They're going to buy more. They're going to refer you to others. And you use the example of HubSpot, how they're a 13-year-old company, yet they're a $6 billion market cap company, recently rated the number one place to work in the US. And their employees are passionate about working there. You said passion is infectious. Employees just love working there, and it translates to everything in terms of productivity inside the company and the product acceptance in the marketplace. So I think there's something to this Fanocracy thing, David. I think you're onto something, you and Reiko. Is there anything that you'd like to add to my summary?
Oh, wonderful summary. And what I'd like to add to this is that we went into this process 5 years ago wondering if the same fandom that we have for the Grateful Dead and Harry Potter could be applied to any business. And the answer is absolutely, positively yes. And we found examples in all different types of marketplaces, doctors and dentists and B2B companies and enterprise software companies and nonprofits, even government agencies. And one of the interesting things that we found is the outward manifestation of fandom is that people are eager to wear the logo of the thing they're a fan of. They wear the logo on a hat on their head. They wear a logo in a t-shirt. They wear a logo sometimes in the form of a tattoo even. They have logos in the form of a sticker on the back of their computer or even on the bumper of their car. And we found examples of B2B companies where people have stickers on the computer. We even found a government agency that has tens of millions of fans. And you can go to practically any city in the world and see people who are wearing a t-shirt with this government agency's logo on it.
Can you disclose who it is?
I will. I was in the Seychelles on the east coast of Africa. This was 3 weeks ago on the east coast of Africa, which is a group of islands just north of Madagascar in the Indian Ocean. And I was walking down a country street. The person who passed me was wearing a NASA t-shirt. NASA has tens of millions of fans, and they're a government agency. Anybody can build fans, Bernie. Even you listening in on this podcast, anyone can build fans.
Well, one thing that we all know about NASA is that they publish a lot of photography, a lot of photos on social media. In fact, they have many different social media accounts because they have so many different programs going on in space. So not to do a tangent on that, but it's a great example, David. I love that example. So I want to be respectful of my listeners' time on their commute or wherever they may be. David, where can people learn more about Fanocracy and connect with you?
Thanks again, Bernie, for having me on. This is great. We have a website at www.fanocracy.com with lots of different information you can download. There's videos, there's infographics, all kinds of stuff there. On the social networks, I'm DM Scott, DMSCOTT, and I use my middle name, Meerman, professionally because I'm the only David Meerman Scott on the entire planet. So you can Google me and you will find me.
Fantastic. David, thank you so much for joining me here today on this episode of the Modern Marketing Engine Podcast.
Thanks, Bernie.
This wraps up another inspiring episode of the Modern Marketing Engine Podcast. If you want to share this podcast with a friend, let them know that we're available on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Podcasts. And we love 5-star reviews. If you are not subscribed yet, please hit the subscribe button on your favorite podcast player so you don't miss an episode. You can read the show notes for each episode at Vengreso.com. While you're there, sign up to receive the show notes delivered to your inbox through our weekly alerts. And be sure to also check out our Selling with Social podcast hosted by Vengreso CEO Mario Martinez Jr. Again, you'll find our show notes at Vengreso.com. And that's one S in Vengreso. Tune in again next week when Bernie Borges brings you another inspiring interview to help you thrive on your modern marketing journey.